Welcome to Of Sound Mind and Spirit. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Lisa. We're sisters walking together on a journey of faith. We're not perfect.
We definitely don't have all the answers.
We're inviting you to walk with us as we explore ways we can better know and grow in our faith together.
Welcome back to another episode from Of Sound Mind and Spirit. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Lisa.
And today we're going to be talking about mothers praying for their children and some lessons we can learn from a mother who inspires us.
That's right. I think no matter what age our kids are, whether they're babies, whether they're toddlers, teens, young adults, 40 years old, I think all moms pray for their kids and have just that worry and desire to keep them close to God.
And that's true especially today because last week we got the results of a study that was conducted in 2022 that shows that belief in God is actually on the decline all around the country. It said that the number of Americans who believe in God without any doubt about his existence is actually just under 50%.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yes. To say that you don't believe without any doubt.
And I think it said that the number of Americans who believe in God at all was at 81%, which is an all-time low in the country.
To not even believe in God, even to believe with doubt is crazy to me.
Well, we're seeing, and that's what we're talking about, is all moms, we all want them to be close to God. And with these numbers and what we're seeing happen in society, that belief in God is on the decline. I think it really places an importance on a mother's prayer. And we do have an amazing holy mother besides Mary, of course. We have another beautiful example of a prayerful mother to look to.
I know a number of women right now whose teenage and adult children are struggling with belief in God. They're telling me that their children have actively walked away from the church. And it's become not uncommon to be somewhere where they're asking for prayers that their grown children return, not just return to the church, but actually to reconnect with their faith and belief in God.
Yeah. With my Moms of Teens group and all the experience I have talking to other mothers of teens, it is very common for us to have that conversation and to be praying for each other and encouraging each other to continue praying for our teens as they question their faith. And it used to be very normal. Teens, young adults question their faith. That's a very, very normal thing. But we used to have a lot more confidence that they would remain faithful. And now I think that there's a lot more concern that they won't.
And we talked about in episode 5, those 3 ways you can help your kids develop a foundation of faith. And so if any of you are listening to this and you didn't hear that episode, go back to episode 5 and we encourage you to listen to it.
Even with a foundation of faith, we're all going to do our best as families, as parents, to help our children and teens develop that foundation of faith. But God gave them free will.
He gave all of us free will.
He gave all of us free will. And as they live more independently, there's friends, there's outside influences, social media, lives, culture, all the things. It can very much pull them away from their faith.
Thank goodness that we do have a model for us, an ordinary woman that prayed incessantly for her family that we can look to as an example.
That's right. Saint Monica. And I smile as I say Saint Monica because Shelley and I have talked about this a lot in that I have been very close to Saint Monica for about a decade. She found me, I guess. Can I say that saints find me?
Yeah, I think so. I was wondering if you might just say what that means when you say that she's been a friend of yours. This is a woman who lived 1,600 years ago. So.
Yeah, we're besties, I'm telling you. Well, St. Monica found me. I was a wife and a mom struggling to pray for my spouse and my family, praying for my husband to come into the church. And I turned to St. Monica. I heard about her. I read about her. And then she kept popping up in my life. And that's why I say saints find me. They just keep popping up. And I learned about her and her example of living a holy life, being an example for her family, and then praying constantly for them. It was interesting because my husband did enter the church in 2020. And I really kind of thought my relationship with St. Monica was done. You know, you're like, oh, yay, thank you.
You're just kicking your friend to the curb?
Yeah. Like, thank you, bestie. And then, you know, my teens, my young adults, you know, it just life struggles, worries, concerns, anxieties. And I realized I don't think I'm done with St. Monica. I think we're still going to be super close because, you know, you start worrying for your kids and for your teens and young adults. And I fell in love with her even more. I learned more about her example of her praying for her son. And that's really what we're going to talk about is praying for your children and how she is that example of persistent prayer as a mom.
Well, let me take just a moment then and introduce St. Monica, your bestie, to our listeners in case you're not familiar with her. St. Monica was born in 331. It's a long time ago, y'all.
Yes.
But she was born in she was born in what's now modern day Algeria. She was raised in a Christian home. She was a devout Christian, but she was married off to a pagan Roman official, and he had a violent temper and he led an immoral lifestyle. Even though he admired her virtues, he still would not accept her religion and he wouldn't allow their 3 children to be baptized. So St. Monica dedicated herself to constant prayer and a devotion for her husband and her children to basically know and grow in their love of God. And eventually, after many trials, her virtues and her incessant prayer did lead to her husband's conversion and baptism. And then, unfortunately, he died just a year later. So most of what we know, actually all of what we know about St. Monica, comes from their son, Augustine. And you might have heard of him. This is a man who was very much in and of the world. When he was in his late teens, he went off to study in Carthage, going off to college. While he was there, he was introduced to all kinds of other pagan religions. And then he took a mistress. They lived together, had a child. And he finally moved back home to, I think he was teaching. She kicked him out of the house. Talk about tough love. So when he was 31, he told her, that's it. Hey, I'm moving to Rome. Rome's the center of everything. And she said, well, I'm going with you. He said, no, you're not. And so he snuck off in the middle of the night and she followed him and showed up in Milan, I think is where he went. They ended up in Milan. But thank goodness they went to Milan because they met a man named Ambrose. He was the bishop of Milan and he was a high intellectual. And so Augustine was drawn to Ambrose, Saint Ambrose, as an intellectual. And within 2 years, through the culmination of prayers and this influence, Augustine was finally converted in his heart and he became a Christian, a Catholic, a follower of Christ, a great saint and a doctor of the church.
That's right. He ended up coming back to Africa and becoming a bishop. And then we know him now as St. Augustine. And the unfortunate part to this is St. Monica, after all these years of following her son around, well, I called her the OG helicopter mom because she would not.
I've heard you say that before.
He was like, see ya, Mom, I'm going to go live my life. And she's like, he left without her and she gets on a ship and follows him. She gets to Rome and he's left again. And then she follows him to Milan. I mean, anyway, so the unfortunate part of this is that after he was baptized and became a Christian and she moved in with him and his friends. Did I mention that? After all of this, and they had this very short, glorious time of them being together and kind of celebrating their faith and having all of these discussions, and on their way back to their home in Hippo, she passed away. And so she, you know, her work was done. I hate even thinking like that, but it was just, she reached her goal.
God said, well done, my good and faithful servant.
That's right. I like St. Monica because even though she and her family lived 1600 years ago, they faced these great temptations and distractions, right? That their path to holiness, her path to holiness, St. Augustine's path to holiness, we can look back and be like, oh yeah, he was a saint. But he lived a very hedonistic lifestyle, and he turned away from God many times, and she did not give up.
Lisa, he actually wrote a book called Confessions.
Yeah.
So if you want to know all the really turned away from God things that he did, go read that. And you'll be amazed at the similarities to life and the world 1600 years later.
Right. It's filled with temptations and social influences. And it really, one of our goals as moms, whether you lived in the time of St. Monica or you live in the modern times, one of our goals is to see our kids get to heaven, a goal of eternal life with Christ, right? And so we can learn some things from her example to really help us help us on that path and in our goal of seeing our kids with God one day.
So looking back on St. Monica's life, you were able to pull out a couple of life lessons for us to follow.
Well, I can't take all the credit. I've read several books about St. Monica. So this is kind of what I've gleaned from what other people have written about her. The first one would be, don't underestimate the power of your example. We think always that we have to teach our children and instruct them, and we send them to faith formation and we, all of that. But we ourselves, and we've talked about this on here, we are inspired by these saints and the example of holy people, seeing other people live good and holy lives. And we want to be like them. We want to learn from their example, exactly what we're talking about here. So our kids are the same. I mean, they might not consciously be thinking, oh, my mom is doing such a good job, I want to be just like her. But they see us do it. So we can't underestimate the power of us living the life the virtues we want our kids to have. How many times do we say, oh my gosh, I'm turning into my mom?
Oh, wow, all the time.
That's such a phrase, right?
Right, because we pick up all our behaviors and our attitudes and how we see the world sometimes by watching how our parents respond and react to things.
Right, even if we're not meaning to, but we pick up the good and the bad. We just keep doing the good things that we're doing because they are watching us.
Well, the next one would be to have patience. I mean, we're bound to get frustrated and be discouraged with our children's behavior or the actions that they take, just like St. Monica. But I think it's really important that we don't get defensive and reactive and yell and scream at them about everything. I think that we'll get farther with them if we remain calm and we respond with patience and kindness. Mm-hmm. And that's really challenging.
It is, isn't it?
When you're really angry at your child, they're expecting you to yell and scream and lose your temper. Our dad actually told me one time, I was upset with my younger daughter, and he said, no, she already expects you to yell and scream. She'll just think it's the same old, same old. Mm-hmm. You need to be very quiet and calm when you talk to her. And then that will get her attention because it's different. So when your kids are acting out or they're going down the wrong path, they're going to expect you to rage and scream at them. And what you need to do is take a lesson from St. Monica, be patient, be calm, talk to them quietly.
And I will say, when they come to you and say, I don't know if I believe in God, they question. It's about calm, patience, and kindness. And I read in a book and they said, kindness is truth delivered with mercy. And I love that because really think about that. You want to tell them they're wrong. Of course God exists. Of course. But how do you say it to them? How do you deliver that message? And kindness is truth delivered with mercy. And how are they best going to receive that? Be patient because raising kids is a very long game, very long endeavor.
So I shouldn't say, "What are you talking about? Of course you believe in God. Get your butt up and get dressed and get in the car. We're going to church."
No, don't say that. Maybe a little differently.
You mean they aren't just going to be like, "Oh, okay, mom, whatever you say."
Mom, that was, oh my gosh, you're so right. You convinced me.
Yeah, I've never heard those words come out of my kid's mouth.
Right. The next one kind of goes in line with that one. You have to have patience and you have to persevere in prayer. This is where her example really shines through because she prayed for almost 2 decades for the conversion of her husband. And he treated her badly. And his mother lived with them and also treated her badly. And she responded in kindness and kept living her life and responded in prayer. And then she prayed again almost 2 decades for her son. And she got discouraged. We have that in his writings, that she got discouraged and she worried about him, but that she continued to pray for him. And that she also, and this is the part I think is really interesting, she also grew in faith during that time. She also talked to St. Ambrose and received spiritual direction from him. And she developed her own faith life in addition to her prayer. And I think that probably strengthened her prayer. So that's kind of the example we need. We need to keep going.
Right. That leads us into another one, and that is to pray for a St. Ambrose for your child. We all know that we can say things to our kids and they don't hear us because we're mom, but then someone else will tell them the exact same thing. And suddenly they're like, "Oh, well, that's great advice. You've made a really valid point. I think that's interesting. I'm going to take that and think about it." And you're over in the wings going, "I've been saying that to you for the last 3 weeks."
Sorry. Exactly.
So, right? So you want there to be another faith-filled, spiritual person who lives a life or is walking in a life that you want your child to emulate that isn't you. I mean, we all want our kids to be just like us most of the time. I mean, when you've had a really good example like our mother, it's important for them to find somebody else. So pray for them to have a good friend, a colleague, a youth minister, for there to be some trusted person in their life that is walking towards God and that they invite them to walk with them.
Mm-hmm. A spiritual mentor. The next one is what I call tears of suffering. St. Augustine recounts how his mother wept while praying for him. And this is one of the things when I first started learning about her that really struck me because I'm a crier. And there are many times, and I could be alone, but I don't think I am. I think we as moms, there are many times that we weep over our children and we cry and we worry. And then to read that she did this and that her son talked about it, and not in a bad way, that it's okay, that God knows our pain and he understands. But at the same time, we need to take that pain and that weeping and that suffering and offer it up. And then we unite our tears with the sacrifice of Jesus. So we can turn our tears into spiritual seeds for our family and for those around us. So take your weeping and your crying, and I would say use it for good. It's good, but offer it up to Jesus for the suffering of your family.
Give your kids some space. We kind of touched on this earlier when we were talking, but about being calm and before. But step back. You don't always have to talk to your child about God. You don't have to continuously remind them that God is here, God loves you, you have to believe in God, etc. So you step back and you just let them be. There's a quote attributed to St. Ambrose, and I'll paraphrase. It's basically, talk to your child a little less about God and talk to God a little more about your child. Rather than continually pushing God upon your child, turn it back into prayer like St. Monica did. But find that balance, don't shy away from living your faith out loud in front of your child. Just don't push God on them all the time.
Right. You realize that it's not us that creates a conversion in someone else.
No.
It's God. It's the Holy Spirit. We constantly pray and ask for God's help for them and trust that he's going to answer that prayer. It just might not be in our time.
Yeah. Right.
And also when, again, as parents, when we push stuff, a lot of times our kids or teens or young adults, they might rebel.
Might?
Yeah.
Like there's a question?
Yeah. The more you push, it's like opposite magnets, right? Like, when you push them together and they repel each other. So this one was huge for me when I started thinking about it, because you do have the tendency, not you, Shelley, me. Me.
Right, I was going to clarify that, but thank you for stepping in there.
I have the tendency, you want them, like, did you get the point? Do you understand? Are you sure? Do you agree with me? Did you take it in? Like, I used to be an attorney, so come on. Like, make sure I won that argument. I did win that argument, correct? So this one really hit for me that maybe I don't need to win the argument in the moment. Maybe I need to take a step back and God will win that argument for me eventually. But there's time involved.
I have this huge smile on my face because I think I've actually had many of those arguments with you.
I win.
And
always.
That makes a lot of sense. That yes, she always has to have the last word. Watch it.
It's true. Maybe that's why I became an attorney. That's not my attorney training. That's why how I ended up in law in the beginning.
Lisa, it's called perseverance.
There you go.
And what made you not just a good attorney, but I think what also drew you to St. Monica in part is that she had that same perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she did not give up until she won the argument. She just had to wait for, God to finish doing his work.
She had to wait a really long time. And I think that's what I really like. I mean, because I think as Christians, one of the things a lot of us struggle with is God's timing versus ours. We want to pray, and I have done this. You pray right then, and you want God to okay, God, I just prayed. How about right now? Right now. Like, I actually have done this. Like, did you not see my schedule? Like, I need this prayer answered right now. That's not how it works. And that's not how God works. That's not how faith works.
I've done that once.
Uh-huh.
And it worked. Only once did it work. And we can talk about that on another episode.
Okay. Well, it didn't work for me. And it was about my teen calling me because I was really sure they were needing to call me because I wasn't sure where they were. And it didn't happen. And there were tears involved and lots of prayers.
Oh.
I need this reminder, and I need this example of how to be a mom. I call it for the long game.
Oh, I like that.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
And I want to point out to you that I know which incident you're talking about. And I will say that it all turned out well.
It did. It did.
Your tears were not wasted.
No.
And your fears and your worries were valid. And he heard you. She just didn't call you.
Yeah.
But she arrived home safely.
Until later. Yeah. I know. And that's kind of the lesson that St. Monica teaches us though, right?
But it's that trust and surrender. I mean, she had such trust and love in God to know that even though it hadn't happened yet, she wasn't giving up.
Right. And there's a beautiful, I'll call it a legend. I'm not sure where exactly it comes from or if it's how true it is when it regards to her. There's I'll call it a legend, that she had a vision of Mary embracing her. And I actually have a print that I found online of it, basically telling her not to worry, that her child was with God. And so ever since then, the image of St. Monica being consoled by Mary, and I have it here on my bookcase, framed actually. I love that because I love the visual of Mary embracing me, the mom who worries and is crying and is praying. And I love that visual of Mary consoling me and telling me that her son has this. He's got it. He's with your child always. I can share a link to that card that I found on Etsy. But I don't know. I think as moms, when we worry and stress, we need that hug. We need a big spiritual hug.
That's beautiful. I almost have nothing else to say following that, Lisa. It's really beautiful. And I know the print you're talking about, I think I've commented on it many times. So
the other thing, I know I'm just going to rant on about Monica. She is my bestie after all. The other thing that I really like about her is that when you really think about what she did, who she was as a person, she wasn't superhuman. She wasn't somebody that we can put on a pedestal and say, I can't do that. Really, what did she do?
she prayed.
She prayed.
She worried.
Yeah, we all worry. She prayed, she worried, and she trusted in God for a long time.
We don't know how many times she ran to somebody like St. Ambrose and was like, I don't know what to do anymore. There's like, is it ever going to happen? And he counseled her on God's time, not on our time.
And he did counsel her that. St. Augustine wrote about that. There are times you can throw your hands up in the air like I do and be like, God, really?
Well, St. Monica is the patron saint of mothers, and it is because of that persistence in her prayer. I think there's only one quote that is attributed to her because her son documented it. She said, "Nothing is far from God."
Yes, and it was in relation to where she was going to be buried. She died in Ostia, which is present-day Italy, and he wanted to question about how he was going to get her body back to Africa. And she said, no, you can leave me here. I'm with God. Nothing is far from God. I'm always with God. He's always with all of us. I love that quote. It's a reminder that God is always with our children. No matter if they've turned away, whether they've questioned, whether we're worried if they're going to turn away, God is always with them.
If you feel like we're speaking to you here, if you feel like you also have these same worries and concerns about your children and where they are in their faith life, if you're also praying like St. Monica for them to remain strong in their faith, for them to develop a rich spiritual life, we invite you to learn more about St. Monica. And we want to know, have you ever thought about asking the intercession of a dear friend who is in heaven to pray with you to God for your children? Because when we say that St. Monica is a bestie, well, wouldn't you call your bestie on the phone and say, hey, I need some help. Would you pray with me?
Mm-hmm. So I just want to leave you with the idea that when we struggle as a mother, we focus on Jesus through the intercession of St. Monica and his mother, Mary. And we can pray for the same patience, persistence, and dedication to motherhood, marriage, and family that St. Monica modeled for us. And if you'd like to learn more about St. Monica, we will include in the show notes some links to a few of the books that I've read about her and the previous articles that I've written about St. Monica. I call her the patron saint of modern mothers because of all of our worry.
Before we leave, we have some feedback, as we mentioned on last week's episode, that we had some new reviews and wanted to share them with you. Feel free to leave us one, and we'll be happy to read it too. This one says, excellent podcast from a pair of sisters who share from the heart about their Catholic faith. It's encouraging, never pushy, and never holier than thou. Oh, thank goodness. I would hate that. Highly recommended. Nothing I hate more than coming across as holier than thou. But
we are not perfect, and we don't have all the
answers. And we don't have all the answers.
We haven't said that yet this episode.
And then here is another one. Love the dialogue between sisters, as well as talking about faith with your family. What a blessing to see how families make faith such an integral part of their life and not just on Sundays. Great shows so far, and I can't wait to hear more.
Yay!
Thank you, everyone who sends us a review.
Yes, we're so glad to see those. And as always, we encourage you to hit the subscribe button. If someone sent this to you, go subscribe. Listen to us on all of your favorite platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever. As always, you can find everything that's going on with us, things we've written on our website, soundmindandspirit.com. And we invite you to subscribe for our emails. At the bottom of our webpage, at the very bottom, you can put your email in there and we will not spam you. I really promise, because I hate that.
And if you really want some laughs, come and check us out on Instagram. Our last episode, Lisa's been posting pictures of our clutter problem.
You're really embarrassed by that, aren't you?
Yes. I sent you one of those photos in complete confidence, and somehow it ended up on social media. So yay, you, Lisa.
I didn't say whose was whose, so nobody knows.
I know.
Which issues are yours and which issues are mine. And there are pictures from both of us in there. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again next week. Remember, we release a new podcast episode every Thursday. Thanks, Shelley.
Thank you, Lisa. Y'all have fun. Bye.